Welcome back to the latest episode of the Key and Mang audio experience. I'm your host, Mang. As always, my fellow co-host, Key. Key, what's good?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. I live in lavish, Keisha Keys.
Me too. Yeah, I am.
Love it. On this episode, we have an author, a doctor, a strength and conditioning coach, an entrepreneur, just to name a few of her titles, which we will for sure dive into as the episode goes on. Dr. Dani Livingstone. What's up, Dani? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on the show. We like to start off our guests with, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to PT?
So I used to be an athlete when I was in college. I ran track and field. And prior to that, when I was running in high school before I got recruited, I actually got an injury. I tore my hamstring. So I did physical therapy to get me back so I could be ready for the collegiate level. And when I first faced an experience of what physical therapy was. So when I got to college, I kind of just already had a sense of what I wanted to do long term, and I kind of just kept working towards that. And from there, I thought I only wanted to be in sports, but along the way, I've kind of dabbled into other settings. And so, yeah, that's how I found my way into physical therapy.
So, what was your experience like as an injured player, or not injured player, but injured athlete? Did you bounce around from multiple PTs, or you pretty much were with the same PT and had a good experience?
I only went to one. I didn't have to go running around to a bunch of other therapists. So it was good and it was more of like that one-on-one interaction. So that was nice.
And the injury, was that what year of that and of high school was that?
It was my junior year.
So then you rehabbed your junior, like going into your senior year?
Yeah, correct. And like in high school, well, with track in high school, because you're a spring sport, you really have recruitment your junior year. Because senior year, it's like at the end. So by then, a lot of the, like contracts are gone and stuff like that. So it was kind of like my final year to really like get back into it.
So was there a little worry or concern that you weren't going to be able to get a scholarship to go to college because you got hurt during your junior year?
No, because no. I was able to be fine because when I tore it, I had tore it at regionals. So by then I had already kind of knew what schools I was going to tour and stuff like that. So it didn't really impact me that bad.
Okay, you got your looks already. So you're just like, all right.
Yeah.
So then what's the undergrad experience like? Do you ever waver between, or do you ever look at other career fields as you're going through your undergrad career?
I really didn't. I'm somebody who, like, when I figure out what I want to do, I kind of just go for it. So I knew my freshman year of college that I wanted to be a physical therapist, and I kind of just looked up and researched what I had to do in order to, make it into PT school and at like the grad level.
How do you manage doing all that while being an athlete? I know many people say it's hard to be like a student athlete and then pursue like a medical degree or like higher education degree. So, what was that experience like?
I just feel like I've always been a very disciplined person. So I feel like I'm not saying it's easy, like don't get me wrong, but I like to just put things of what is priority and kind of just make the time to get it done. So because I would say I was one of the few people who I knew that was a college athlete that took, I feel like, studying and career like focus, like serious, along with my track career at the time. So because I knew what I wanted to do, I think for me it was a little bit easier on knowing the steps to get there. And you travel, you're up at 5 a.m., you're training, you're doing all those things, and I have to go to class. So it was a lot to juggle. But again, I think I just kind of prioritized, what needed to get done and made sure I got it done.
Where'd you get that skill of discipline from? Like, was it anybody in your family? Like, how did you develop that skill?
I guess I would say it's because of my family. Like, I mean, my parents have said like I've always kind of been like this, but I think I mean, the drive is I come from parents who are immigrants. I come from parents who come from Jamaica, and they've worked so hard. And I've had my dad who always told me like, like you're in a country with like so much opportunity, things that like I didn't have, and there's no way you can't go to school for free. I remember him telling me that like in high school. He's like, you can get a scholarship. Like, there's so much money out here. Like, I'm not paying for your school. And he didn't mean it like rude. He just meant it like, really take on these opportunities that you have here in this country that like I did not have. And I think that kind of set the precedent of like, you have to be great. Like, like you can't not give your full effort to whatever you do.
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. I think being able to have those conversations early on, it kind of allows you to get a different perspective of what you're seeing as you're growing up. I know for me, similar to me, like you see, my parents are come from Gambia, and they're like, we came over here to give you guys a better opportunity than what we had. And so when you're thinking about career, when you're thinking about what you want to do moving forward, you don't take this stuff for granted because you know how hard it was for you to get here in the first place. And so you're like, well, whatever you decide, you're like, I'm gonna make it big because you got love for your parents and you want to take care of them, but you're gonna have to like work, especially as a minority and as a person who the field don't really look like any like a lot like us. So we gotta do things a little differently and grind a little harder. So I love that. I think that's a great mindset. It's a great, trait to have as you move forward. And I think it's helped you along your way. Well,
Thanks.
of course. What was like now going through Georgia State, and then what was PT school like for you? Because I know you did a lot while you was in PT school, which we'll dive into, but just adjusting from undergrad to PT school.
Yeah, PT school was fun. It was great. I feel like I had a cohort where we really collaborated a lot. I had a great program. I had great professors. I feel like my experience in PT school, I was very fortunate because I had, colleagues or other friends who went to other programs and it just didn't sound the same, like they were in class from like 8 to 5. Like I went to grad school in Miami. So like my professors were very like, go to the beach, hang out, like don't be too caught up in all this studying, just know what you gotta know. Sometimes I'd be at a class at 11. Some people are like, oh, you did so much in PT school. It's like, well, I had time. Like when I was done studying, like I was like, I have so much time. I feel so bored. They say don't work, like I didn't work my first semester. But when I figured out I had time, that's when I was like, okay, there's so much more that I can do with my time to like capitalize my time like in school. So yeah, like I think my time in PT school was great because my professors really had like that open door policy. I was able to work. I was able to be creative and create um, and do all that while getting my doctorate, which I feel like a lot of people don't have that time to do that in a program like that, but I was able to do it, so that was nice.
And did you write the how to get into PT school book during PT school?
Yeah, I think I want to say I wrote it. Yeah, my second year of PT school, I was able
What
to that book.
what inspired you to write that? Did you like have a did you have a tough time getting into PT school? Not actually getting in, but choosing a school, maneuvering through the whole process.
It's kind of a little bit of opposite. Like I hate to sound like things weren't hard, but I'm not saying it was easy. what happened to me was in undergrad, like I said, I researched how to get in, but what was troublesome was I feel like there was no direction. Like I would go to advisors and they couldn't tell me the steps. Like all I would hear from professors was like, oh, PT school is so hard to get into. Like, they make us raise our hands. So I was exercise science background. So a lot of people in undergrad who were exercise science, they wanted to do like PT school. So they were like, raise your hand if you want to do PT school. And like 75% of the class would raise their hands. And some professors would be very discouraging. They'd be like, oh, well, all of you guys can't get in because it's so hard to get into and all that stuff. And it is very competitive. But then no one would tell you like what you should do to get in. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like I had to figure everything out. I remember I went to an advisor one time and I told her, like, I had went into undergrad with credits or already from high school, like college credits. And I was like, okay, well, I found out that, you apply to PT school like 1 year, but then you don't start the following year for most programs. But I had a plan of, well, I want to be able to finish by a certain time. So that meant I had to graduate early. So I told her, and she basically was like, you're being too ambitious. Like you can't do all that and run track and do all this stuff. Like it's not possible. So I left that advisor. I was like, get me a new advisor. Like give me somebody who's gonna actually help me, And so I actually got a great advisor. And he helped me research, and anything I needed him to sign off on, he would, because he believed that I could do it. So for me, having that experience of me doing a lot of the work on my own, of like how to get in, like that really inspired me. I'm the type of person, like I love mentorship. I love, if I figure out something, I love to put people on. I love to tell them like, listen, don't do what I did. Like I'm gonna make it easier for you. So I wrote the book because I felt like a lot of people would ask me questions on how to get in. Like I even made a video my first year, like 5 things I wish I'd done differently, or 5 things I wish I knew. And that video had a lot of people DMing me. So because of the DMs in that video, I was like, let me write a book so that I don't have to keep telling people the same over and over again. They just buy the book and I'll have all the steps. So that's how I was able to do it.
And how did you decide that the book was the platform that you wanted to use instead of like video or, audio? Or why did you decide a book was the platform?
I have always liked writing. It's always been my thing. I used to have a blog. My mom thought I was going to be a writer like growing up. So it's like, I still have that passion for writing. So it was easier for me to do it with, my thoughts onto paper versus me doing like videos and stuff like that using social media.
Sweet. And where can people find it if if there are students on here that are listening that want to tap into the book?
Yeah, so I used to have a website. It was ptschoolunlocked.com. That's actually getting revamped because I was switching different like platform, like website for it. So for now, you could get it directly from me at any one of my like Instagram handles, double_DD fitness or Dani.Livingstone on Instagram, and you can just ask me directly, and I can set that up so I can ship it to you.
Perfect. And then we'll drop all those. We'll have you repeat those at the end too, and then we'll drop those in the show notes when this drops.
Okay.
So as you're going through PT school, you get through PT school, start your first job. What's it like being a PT, passing boards, all that stuff? What's your first job experience look like?
So passing boards was great. I mean, everyone wants to be like one and done. Like it's so stressful. So, you just want to pass. So when I passed, I was very happy. And I always said coming out of PT school, like I didn't want to be that typical therapist that was burnt out. Like I was not gonna see 2, 3, 4 people an hour. Like that's just not something I was gonna do. And so I was very fortunate. My first job was not that. I was able to get an outpatient job. It was an amazing setup. We all shared like an open space. We all had our individual treating rooms, high-low table, your own office. Like it was nice for private treats if you wanted to. And it was one-on-one. So I did outpatient, and I got to see, various ages, high schoolers to, older adults to a little bit of the elderly, my first job. So in terms of population and setup, it was a good first job.
Then you, after the first job, what was the next step? Because I know not recently, well, within the last year, you tweeted about the different settings you worked in and like being a well-rounded therapist. What was your next step after that first job?
So for me, it's all about growth. Like I just did not want to be in one spot for a long time. And I wanted to be at a job where I could really grow into that position, into another position. I've always been open to wanting to do administration, like healthcare administration as well, like the behind the scenes. So I was offered a lead therapist role at my first job, but I got another opportunity to go to an assisted living facility and work there and work my way into being a rehab director. So I took that position. So before that job, though, I was also doing home health on the side. So I got into home health and outpatient at the same time. And so then I got into an assisted living facility and now into a rehab director role at an assisted living facility. And I also have a PRN, acute care hospital job. So my biggest thing, you're like, well, why did you get into all those settings? Like, I know that's next. I think it's so important to go into different settings to figure out what you want. I feel like I got into PT school saying, I want to do sports, I want to work for an NBA team. That's all I want to do. And then you quickly realize what the profession really is and how things are. And if you really want to maximize your freedom, your time freedom, and your financial freedom, I think you have to test the waters in different settings to do that and get out of your narrow-minded tunnel vision, of what you want to do. That's okay to have, but I think try different things before you're like gung-ho about it.
And I think with the experiences that you have in all those different settings, I think you're a good person to ask this question to. What are some of the, I don't want to say, what are some of the things that you notice in the field, being able to see from so many different perspectives that you wish we would change as a profession, or things that you like, the things that you don't like in the profession and things you want to see change?
Ooh. Well, I think one of the things that I think everyone can agree on is like insurance and like reimbursements. Like that's always going to be a problem, like no matter what. And it's unfortunate. Like I've learned a lot about like Medicare Part A versus Medicare Part B and working in both, and different reimbursement rates based on where you were at and like where you're going as a patient. And that trickles down to affecting the therapist, right? Like if we're thinking about this monetary wise, as a company, if I'm only getting paid X amount that's being reimbursed from a patient, that means I can only pay my employees X amount, which means there's a cap. Like I don't care how great of a staff therapist you are, like you're gonna be capped no matter what. Like, and when you think of other professions, other healthcare professions, whether you're a doctor, nurse practitioner, PA, they are started out as higher rates because they don't have as big of a reimbursement issue as we do. So in our profession, the room for growth, like the ceiling is very, very low. Like you're not going to be able to climb the ladder as a staff therapist, no matter whatever setting you're at, like whatever setting you're at. So to me, that was my biggest thing that I saw. And the thing where I was like, well, I already have a problem with feeling stagnant. I'm always chasing growth. how can I do that while still being a therapist? What do the behind the scenes look like? I think everybody needs to start asking themselves that question. Like start looking at reimbursement, start looking at what your company like gets paid. Like you can ask these questions. Like if you're curious and you have a good mentor or boss, like they'll answer it for you, if you have a good relationship with them. So I feel like that was something. I also think, I'm really big on point of service documentation. It's a very unrealistic scenario. I feel like if you are just with your patient one-on-one, like I wish we could be, like I wish notes didn't exist. I think we all wish that, right? So I feel like having a good sense of doing point of service documentation is always good. But like in the ideal world, you miss out on some of that patient time and connection just a little bit. Like you could be a great multitasker, still accomplish it. But in our profession, they want us to give best care and all this stuff, but there's so many like T's we got to cross and I's we got to dot, that but not enough time to do it, that no one is, I feel like, ever giving best practice. And that's just my opinion. The system is not designed for you to spend all your time and give your patient what you want. The system is designed for you to be as productive as you can so that the company can make money, and they're not paying you to do things that are not productive. That's a problem.
I agree. And I think it's really hard to be a good physical therapist, especially an outpatient. It's hard to be a good PT and provide quality service, and you have to worry about notes and then like appeasing to insurance companies in your documentation. So I do think that it is a problem. But then you run into the question, and I think we talked about this before, like, is it like, do you go to cash pay to solve that problem and then run into the issue of people saying you're not affordable? Like, what do you do from there? Like, how do you improve that?
I think everyone's answer is always going to be cash based. I don't think cash based is bad. I do cash based as well sometimes. So I think it's great, but there's always going to be a cap on cash based because you're always going to have the patient load to sustain whatever you're doing, like any other business. And you have to constantly prove that you are providing a value that's worth that cash amount. And you have to look at your demographic, your population. You're talking $90+ a regular session. And how many sessions are you going to give that patient? Like, how long is the plan of care? There's just so many questions to answer. And then you got to have somebody for that, which I do think is possible. Do not get me wrong. I think it's very possible, but I also don't think it's the only way. And I think it goes back to me saying, I think a lot of physical therapists are so focused on being physical therapists. And I think it's great if you are absolutely in love with what you do. But I think the majority of physical therapists, especially newer grads, me, myself, as being a newer grad, we are starting to look at the whole structure, the whole healthcare system. And we are also starting to look at other interests that we have outside of PT that can help with PT, and also help maximize your financial and time freedom. And when you think about it, we work a profession where we'll never have work from home. We'll never be able to work for, unless you're doing telehealth. Like, being a healthcare worker, you're very limited. And this goes back to me saying, like, at a staff position, how much can you really maximize your talents? Or even if you start your own business, if you are the one treating, aren't you just working like in the business, not really running the business? So I think a lot of physical therapists just need to ask themselves, like, what is your end goal here? Like, okay, you're going to start a business. Okay, but like, are you going to run it or are you going to work in it? I mean, I love treating, I love helping people, but I don't like it that bad. So where I'm treating people 8-10 people a day. I'm not afraid to say that. So I know for me, it's not going to be a situation where when I do start my brick and mortar, I don't want to be the main physical therapist inside of it. I want everything to do about the business about it. And I think more physical therapists need to start thinking about that versus how, like, I think they just think to themselves like, oh, well, how can I just, help people more? Or how can I just, maximize my time with my patients? And like, that's not what I'm thinking about. Like, I'm truly not thinking about that. I'm thinking about what can I do for my future self. And I know being a staff therapist was not going to cut it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel you on that. I think with the PT field also, there's a lot of untapped potential just because like there's not a lot of people going into like thinking about the business side of things. So if you decide to hop into it and you can combine your talents of whether it's writing, whether it's talking, whether it's editing, you can create a large like side hustle business that can supplement what you're already doing on the side, and you can still help people. You can still help people with the value that you're bringing, whether it's ebooks, blogs, YouTube videos, and then you can bring people into your stuff, and you're not having to see them one-on-one, but you're still helping them, and that can bring extra money to your pocket. So that's why I'm like, I think this is like the perfect time to start like learning about the other side of the PT world, because there's not a lot of people in it right now, and the people who are doing it are doing pretty well. At least the top of the top are doing pretty well because it's an untapped market. Now, if we were in like business and we were trying to open up a business, and that's a different story because there's a lot of business people who have like side hustles, entrepreneurship, but in PT you don't see a lot of it. So I think it's a big opportunity, a lot of opportunity to really grow and think outside the box. Key's favorite term. Um, and so yeah, no, I agree with everything that you said. So with like talking about some of your like, is the brick and mortar your end goal and what you want to do with PT?
Um, I would say when it comes to like PT, like it is one of my end goals. My ideal situation as a physical therapist, like that title that I carry, is to have a brick and mortar space, and it's a rehab facility, but also a sports performance facility, because my love for sports will always be there. And I'm also a strength and conditioning coach too, so it just ties well together. Um, and so that is the goal of mine, and I would like, when it comes to fruition, that I don't have to be the person always treating or evaluating in my business. I would love to be the person that has my hands in the marketing, has my hands in just the CEO role of, okay, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to hit. This is how we need to grow. These are the numbers, the back end, and then occasionally treat when I want to, evaluate when I want to. I want to grow it to that point where I don't feel that stress of, oh, I got to get up and go, interact with 8-10 people on their health today. I think that's something that people who are not healthcare providers do not understand. It is stressful, it is tiresome, and that's why we get burnt out, because we're the only healthcare professional that spends 2-3 times a week with our patients, sometimes more depending on your setting, and you are getting all of the information from your patient about what the other health care providers are not doing. Oh, my primary doesn't do this. Oh, I go and I see him for 5 minutes. Oh, let me tell you about this, what's going on with me. This was, and then you're expected to put your hero cape on and call the other providers and advocate. It's like we turn into like the biggest advocates for our patients, which, don't get me wrong, well, that's why we have that doctor title. When we see something that's out of our scope, we are supposed to go refer and talk to whoever is responsible for that level of care. But at the same time, I think we can't turn around and blame other healthcare providers of what our patients are saying, because I feel like us as healthcare providers understand how the system is designed. That physician can't see that patient for more than 5-10 minutes because he's scheduled for 4-5 patients an hour, 15 10-minute slots. So again, healthcare, the system is not designed for us to be the best versions of ourselves. So because of that, that's why we feel that burnout. And that's why I'm saying my ideal role as a physical therapist isn't going to be an evaluating and treating physical therapist for 8 hours out the day, because I know my mental health is going to be just off the charts. Like, it's just not sustainable, because that's what we're getting. We're getting being physical therapists and then a psychologist every time we're with the patient, because we spend so much time with them. So it's just facts. Like, I know we've all had this with patients.
I have it. I feel like I have it every day. I just tweeted or posted on Facebook one day. Everybody was like complaining to me about their life. And I was like, I don't know if I'm a physical therapist or a mental health therapist today. And people were like, well, you're
Yeah.
both. And I'm like, it don't work like that.
No, and that is one of the driving factors why I left my first job. The setup, I said that, like, I explained the setup. You know, you had your own office, your own high-low table, you could close the door. So when you build that rapport with your patients and they come back and you close that door and they lay on that table, oh, they think they're in a different type of therapy. And it was on the hour, every hour. And I was grateful that my patients trusted me. I was grateful that we had this relationship. Like, I really felt like I gave them my best and we built this like rapport, like each and every one of them. But at the end of the day, I'd be so drained mentally. And I was like, I am not even a year in this profession. Like, I gotta do something now, or I'm really gonna be burnt out like 2-3 years in. So I just had to leave.
I also think that I have this thought sometimes where like there's certain people that I work with on a day to day, and I don't mind them complaining to me, but then not complaining or just like venting to me, and I don't want to say anything else, just venting to me, right? And I feel like if I saw less people, I wouldn't mind so much. I just think it's the volume of people that you're seeing. And also with that being said, when you're on like a time constraint, I feel like you're limited on how much you can actually help somebody. But when you don't have that time constraint, like maybe in your own business, however you structure it, you'll feel better about giving people like more of your energy because you have more control over the volume of people you're seeing. I think that's where the issue lies. I think people like might hear us saying this and be like, well, you knew you was getting into and get into healthcare, but just because it's been that way doesn't mean it has to stay that way. We shouldn't have to keep it that way.
Yeah. And
That's what I don't like.
I don't think we did know. Like, I feel like I don't think that statement is valid. I did not know coming into this profession, like, that's what I was gonna have to deal with. Like, I think that is something I would tell one of the things I tell people all the time who are they're trying to get into PT school or they're in PT school and they're asking me like questions about the real world of PT, the reality. And that's one of the things I always say, like, do not get a job where you are seeing 18 people a day. Like, it is going to drain you. Like, do not be that therapist who's in a regular outpatient setting seeing 3-4 patients an hour, because you're going to feel burnt out and you're also going to feel like you're not really using your skills because you don't have time to use your skills properly because you're like on the hour every hour just trying to get the job done. So
When it comes to you working with your patients, what do you think sets you apart?
I'm really big on building rapport with my patients. I think anybody can buy in to you if they like you. Part of getting better is like just having a better attitude. You know what I'm saying? And right now, the population I work with is elderly. Right now, like, I only work with old people. I work at a sleeping facility. So me and the geriatrics, we be talking every day. And you know, I have this rapport with my patients. I have this connection with my patients where they'll tell me like, "You're the best therapist I've ever had." Like, they've written me letters, like, you know, and it's like I don't feel like I am like this top tier physical therapist that has like superb skills more than any other therapist. I just really think that I break things down to my patients in a way for them to understand it. and then I meet them where they're at, and I literally just listen to them. And I don't act like I'm just their therapist. Like, a lot of us are friends. Me and my 9-year-old patients, like, we're friends. Like, we'll chop it up, we'll talk, and like that alone is probably what they need to get better. Like they sometimes they just want, they feed off of like youth and getting to be able to like tell their stories, and I allow them. Like, I'll sit there and we'll just talk sometimes, and I'll tell them to do their exercise, and they'll be like, wow, I feel great. And I'm not saying I'm not doing anything. I'm just saying, like, sometimes like just having that positive energy around them, like, just makes all the difference. Like, listening to people makes all the difference for their health.
Yeah, I feel you. And then like if you were to like tweet something to like tweet that experience, somebody gonna be like, well, you're not doing PT right. You're not being a good PT by listening to your patient. Might end up on a Instagram on a certain Instagram page, but we won't.
Yeah. Yeah, she'll not be named.
Shall not. But speaking of social media, like how do you go about, like if you were to look at your Twitter, like you're very like you let your thoughts be known out there and what you're thinking. I feel like you probably moderate to, you know, not your full thoughts obviously, but you let your thoughts be known. How do you deal with some of the negative backlash that you get from some of your tweets, even though in your heart of hearts that's how you feel and that's what you find to be true, but then you get put on pages, you get people coming at you like that's not how you PT, that you're not supposed to do that, blah 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 blah. Like, how do you deal with all that?
um a lot of me does not care. I didn't want to say that, but I truly don't care about the negative comments or what people say, because everyone is going to do what they think is best for their patient, no matter what. And I also think half the time when I say something, and I've told Key this, like, the reason why, like, okay, I tweeted what I tweeted was because of like something that I experienced earlier in that day or something like that. And Twitter is about your thoughts and your opinions and stuff like that. But when you have people following you in the same profession as you, everybody wants to throw their 2 cents in. And I think a lot of people that have something to say are most of the time stuck in their ways and their old school way of thinking. And that's okay, because like that's their style and that's what they believe. But PT in any profession, any healthcare profession, is not one size fits all, and it's also not like cookie cutter, right? Like, you could do something that I think is that I probably wouldn't do, but it's still appropriate, and vice versa. So I think when people have something negative to say, it's like a projection of themselves, like their own insecurities or something that they just don't believe in, and that's fine. I mean, I wish they didn't like have to say it like to me. I mean, if you feel that way, you feel that way. But I truly just try to ignore it, because no matter what, like, I'm gonna do what I want to do as a therapist, you know, and they're gonna do what they want to do as a therapist and what they believe in. And whether that's pertaining to patient care or just like the ideologies of physical therapy, because I know I say some things, and people sometimes are like, I can't believe you think that. Like, I can't believe you don't believe this when it comes to the profession. But the profession, to me, if things aren't going to start being done unconventionally, it's a dying profession regardless. And people don't like when I say that, but it is. And if you don't do something that's going to make you unique or pivot or whatever, you're going to get left in the masses. Because every year, what do we see? Reimbursement cuts, like no higher pay. You're a doctor, but you're not getting paid doctor money. So, I mean, you can look at the facts, or you can be delusional and keep, combating the facts, but then you're going to get left.
No, I totally agree. And we've had one of our earlier episodes, Key kind of got similar backlash. And we discussed kind of the similar sentiment as what you just said. And I feel like you're totally right. I feel like you have to adapt to the situation at hand. Like, we know what reimbursement rates are, we know what the future is looking like. And if you stay with it, if you follow the herd, you're gonna get slaughtered. And so I think it's about, yeah, like I said, pivoting, but being able to, be comfortable in your own thoughts, and understanding that, like, this is who I am, this is what I think. Someone else might disagree, they can agree, we can agree to disagree. But you'll hear out their thoughts if they want to provide that perspective. And I feel like a lot of people, I wish we'd see more people provide their perspective on why they don't agree with a certain thing. I feel like you just disagree with it, and then you, like, because it's not something that you're used to, and then you just, like, that's it. And we don't have a discussion about, I think this because this, or you think this because this, and have a discussion about it. And then, all right, we agree to disagree, or you change my mind on something because you brought up some good points, and then we keep it moving. But I feel like we argue as a field, we argue with each other so much, and it doesn't help us grow forward. And that's part of the frustrating part. So I'm like, ugh. I read some of those comments and I'm like, this is so unproductive. This is so stupid.
I think a lot of that is like what Danny said, like insecurity, like people projecting. Nobody's gonna say, "Oh, I disagree with you," because that doesn't include me. Like, for example, the whole like buying in because of a certain physique, or going to somebody who does the same activity as you. If you don't do that activity or you don't fall into that category, you're not gonna agree because it doesn't fit you. But you also don't have the like courage to be like, I feel some type of way. That's why I agree. Because there's no other logical reason that people disagree with a lot of things that are being said. But like, if you really don't care and it doesn't bother you, you're not going to disagree. You're not really going to pay it any mind. So I think that's why you don't see as much of the productive conversation, because there is no productive conversation to be had.
Exactly.
Speaking of pivoting, in a perfect world, take away like reimbursement cuts, insurances, all the negative things about the profession, what would you want the future of the profession to look like?
Like, I wish we could, I think go back to the volume that we were talking about. You mentioned volume. I totally agree with that, with seeing X amount of patients a day. I wish in an ideal world you could put a cap on, like, as a therapist, like a staff therapist, even, because not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody wants to be an admin. Like, just because I'm saying these things, I don't expect everybody to want the same things. Some people really got into the profession because they're like, wow, like, I really just want to help people, like, through my interventions. And like, that's okay. That is valid. So for those people too, like, I feel like they should be able just to, see 4 or 5 people a day, give their best care, not worry about time constraints, not worry about insurance, and can not worry about visit limits. Like, if my patient is a candidate to be with me till they die, that should be valid enough. If this is the only thing that is going to keep my patient moving is coming to see me 2-3 times a week for the rest of their lives, and they only got about 5 years left, no insurance should stop that. I've seen a lot of Parkinson's patients, and I've seen, like, we all know, like, they have to keep moving. They have to, like, therapy is the only thing, with conjunction of changing in their medications when warranted, alternate, that's going to keep them living a quality of life until they die. And you got insurance companies saying, no, I'm gonna give you 3 visits. Blasphemy. That is bullshit. Like, and I think that's the worst thing, I think, for me as a therapist to see is, having, or now I'm a rehab director, so I gotta tell these patients, like, oh, like, sorry, we ran your insurance, but you have a hard max, and we were to use all your visits for the year. It's July. We got 6 more months in the year. You telling people they can't get any more rehab? Like, it's like, I don't know. Like, it's just messed up. It's very messed up. And I think that'd be a perfect world. Like, no insurance limits. give people the health care they need, whether it's PT, a physician, a specialty, I don't care what it is. Give them what they need to live a quality of life. That's why I got into this profession. And I can't even do that to my full potential because there's all of these rules, laws, regulations, and all that stuff.
And we don't know if the game is going to change, but I know you're doing your part now to try and make a difference in the people that you see and like the people that you're helping. So I had a question about your Build the Lay Foundation Building the Lay Foundation program that you just created.
With a foundation, yes.
Build the foundation. Can you talk about the process of creating that and what you want the outcome to be for the people that get that program?
Yeah, my business that I have, Dani's Dynamic Fitness, is fitness oriented, but also has rehab in it, and it's training people and coaching people on the proper way to achieve their goals, in the fitness realm. And I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to like weight loss or strength or anything like that, there's not a lot of good, like proper programming, right? And I get a lot of people who ask me about my physique and all that stuff. And for me, it's having a way where I don't have to do because I still do one-on-one with clients. It's a way for me to kind of put the information all in one thing, kind of like my book, and people can buy it one time so that they have the proper tools. And it's the education. Like, I'm really big on educating. And so it's educating people on, like, if your goal is this is one of the ways that you can achieve it. Like, getting away from all the nonsense that's on the internet of people who aren't educated. They're just throwing out random stuff out there just for likes, clicks, or whatever. Like, here is my professional standpoint on, if you want to build, if you want to set a proper foundation for yourself to achieve any goal after that, this is my formula to do it. So I think it was very important, because a lot of people are like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And they're doing crazy inappropriate exercises, crazy volume, not enough deload, not enough calories, like a lot of things that when I say these things, you guys know because of your profession and your education, but the average person starting at day 0 has no idea. So I just wanted to put proper education out there to really help people with their health.
And I think kind of like what you were talking about before with some of the problems that you see, and I feel like you were able to take everything that you see and all the education, all the knowledge that you've accumulated and put it into this. And I'm sure this is not going to be the only thing that you use to educate people, but I feel like it's a way, like, instead of waiting for the field to change or the people, the APTA to change, you're taking things in your own hands, and the impact that you have on the people that get to know you or get into your program is going to have a trickle down effect into the next generation. So I feel like being able to take things into your own hands is instead of waiting for the changes, what is going to help it move forward, because who knows if any of the insurance things are going to change. We don't know that. They could not, but why wait if you can kind of take things into your own hands? So we were just curious about the building of your program and what you're hoping to accomplish. And so with like everything that you've done so far, how do you make sure you take care of yourself? Because you got a lot of things going on, multiple jobs, programs, talking to people all the time. Like, how do you make sure you take care of yourself and continue your growth?
Yeah, I'm really big on self-care despite all the things I do. I understand that if I'm not good, what I put out's not going to be good. And that looks very different for everybody. Like, I love going to the spa. I love taking a vacation every now and then. I just love me time, like away from everybody. And so I just make sure that when warranted is put into my schedule somehow. Sometimes it's multiple times a month, I'm able to do that. Sometimes I go to a whole month and I can't do any of those things because I'm really busy. But then I take time to reset after that so I can get back into the proper like self-care groove. So I think, especially as a healthcare professional, you cannot be treating these patients if you're not taking care of yourself. And again, that looks different for everybody. Some people, that might just be going for a walk. For me, it's going to the gym. Like that's my weekly self-care, despite the spas and vacations and all that stuff. Like making sure my body feels good so I can be better for my patients. So I think every healthcare professional definitely needs to take self-care very seriously.
I agree. What is, I know you and I share a couple books. What would you say is a book recommendation for people who are trying to like improve their lives, improve their ability to take care of themselves, and just have a better like mindset and outlook on life?
The best book I have read has been The Mountain Is You. You know, I'm gonna recommend that book every chance I get. Maybe because it really helped me. Like, I'm very big on like honesty, self-help books. And that book, you read it and it's slapping you in the face. Like, I think there's not a lot of accountability in life. People always want to blame the next person or blame the system and blame all these things. Like, yes, we can voice our opinions and complain about it, but like, what are you going to do so that you are happy? That's the question everybody in this world needs to ask themselves. And I think that book is very helpful for you to take accountability and figure out what you're not doing that's making you unhappy. So yeah, that book right there. Everybody go get it.
Yeah, I second that. Danny recommended that book to me, and then I was like, "Damn, this book is like reading me."
Yeah.
I have one last question. I don't know if Meg has anything else, but is there anything you used to feel very strongly about or used to believe that you've changed your mind on?
Wait, ask it one more time.
Is there anything that you used to feel very strongly about or used to believe that you changed your mind on?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. I believe that I used to believe, this comes back from having immigrant parents who wanted the best for me. You know, going to school, get a higher education, you know, all that stuff is very important. I still think it's important, but I don't think it's necessary. And that's coming from somebody who has a terminal degree, you know, like if there are other passions that you have that could, you know, make you happy, financially stable, and give you time freedom, you can do those things without going to school.
That I agree with. I agree with that. But I feel like, people will say, do what makes you happy, but then you're like struggling like hard. So I'm like, all right, do what makes you happy, but make sure you can provide for yourself.
Yes, that's important too. Yeah.
My last question, you dropped a lot today. If you could talk about 1 to 2 takeaways you want people to take away from this conversation today, what would you say?
My number one thing, I think, especially when it comes to this profession, and you asked me earlier about what makes me different than other therapists, I think just that connection, like, and not just with your patients, I'm talking about every single person you come in contact with in life. Networking is the greatest skill. Having the ability to banter, to talk, to connect with any person in this world. And it doesn't mean being fake. It doesn't mean not being who you're being. It's literally connecting with people who are not like you, don't do what you do, is the single most important thing in this world, in my opinion. And that is what helped me so much since starting my career. I have so many connections and people just from being myself and talking and just getting to know the people who you work with, who you treat, who you come across in life. And you just never know where those connections in life will take you with hard work. And I think people, especially in healthcare, need to really remember that. Students, oh my gosh, people in PT school, like, remember that. Like, the job I have now is because of somebody that was a clinic manager at my last rotation who left and then thought about me as a student and called me and was like, hey, I think you'd be great for this position. Like, I wasn't even a PT. So people are watching you. People look at what you do. They look at what you post. They look at who you are. They look at the energy you give. And so you have to make sure who you are is like, it's like the true reflection of you. I think everything I say on the internet, everything that I do, no matter how crazy it might sound, like, you know, whatever, it's really who I am. So it's like, I think it's important to always put yourself out there and like have that charismatic trait, and really just build connections. Like that is just so important.
Perfect way to end it. Love it. I love it. Dani, thank you for coming on. Can you tell us again where people can find you if they have questions or they want to, visit any of your programs or your website?
Yes. So my business website is danny'sdynamicfitness.com. My Instagram for my personal is danny.livingstone on Instagram. And then my business on Instagram is _DD Fitness. And they can reach me there, or my email even, info@dannysdynamicfitness.com.
Perfect. And we'll drop all those in the show notes when this drops. But just wanted to say thank you for coming on. We really appreciate that we were able to make this happen.
Yes, thank you guys so much for having me. I love what you guys are doing. And I think people need to keep having these type of conversations, and hats off to you guys. I know this isn't easy to always have guests on your show and take time out of your busy schedule. So thank you again for having me.
Appreciate it. And we'll catch y'all in the next episode. Peace.
Okay.